Welcome to the Games Revealed podcast, brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
And I'm Tyson.
And this is Shagwa.
And it's the only podcast where you're going to find that we are experts in both games and little things. And today's game is one of the special ones because it is Little Nightmares, both a game and about little things. And so we got you on this one.
Yeah. You just get those little things and you put them in your mouth, you little piece of shit.
Tyson and I are so expert about little things, though.
And any of you that get that reference, you're in my heart forever.
Yep.
And so, the Little Nightmares is a little bit of a surprise. I think during our last planning, we wanted to do something just really different, and we decided on Little Nightmares. And I have to say, I just got done with it a couple hours ago, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I wasn't sure what I thought it was initially, because eventually I fell into this is very limbo-ish, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I actually was kind of surprised by this one because, like, when I really sit down and think about it, I really did like it, and there's so much to like, but there was something that didn't sit well with me, and we'll get to that later in the podcast. It took me a while, though, to kind of be able to verbalize it. But one thing that I really liked about this game after we played it and started digging into it was this one actually has a little bit more information about its development and some of that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get into that stuff. There's not a lot of information available. But Little Nightmares, they were pretty open with some of that development stuff. And one of the interesting things I found is that this game was originally going to be called Hunger. And the development team actually had a hard time initially finding someone to distribute the game for them, or to publish it, I think is the term they use in the industry. They ended up retitling it Little Nightmares. And apparently one of the reasons for this is after Bandai Namco picked them up to publish, they wanted to make it easier to find and more searchable. So they did that to kind of differentiate it from the Hunger Games series. And I don't know if there's a Hunger Games series of video games, but either way, it does make it much more searchable on Google because Hunger Games is a huge IP. So I thought that was really clever, and it's also a much better title. Though the original title does reflect some of the themes that the game talks about. And it does kind of hint on the atmosphere of the game, too.
I actually think it makes more sense to have it called Hunger, because when that was happening in the game, where you're just hungry, it was just like, what's going on?
Yeah, like, it's
and then
all around that. Yeah.
You just eat something, and then it just happens multiple. And then I'm like, okay, this is going to be a thing then after the second time. But I'm like, just random slabs of meat.
Oh, yeah. But everybody's eating. Like, if you look at it in the series of bosses, I guess, like the first guy, he's the butcher, kind of. I know he's called the janitor, but if you look at what he's doing, he's wrapping up kids in butcher paper,
Yeah.
So I was just like, this guy is a mother effing butcher. But yeah, it's all around the food.
No, I see how it is, James. James, with that logic, James. When you get hungry, it should just be called hunger because it makes sense. Why are we called people then, James? Why aren't we just called hungries? Huh? What kind of logic is that? You got some splaining to do, America. Why is this one Kansas and this one not Arkansas?
Oh my gosh.
Maybe we should be called hungry here in America, but there's already a country called that. So
Yeah,
that's true. Oh, that's really funny.
But
man.
I think Hunger was a good title for it, but yeah, it does mix up with that Hunger Games. But I just love everything. Not only just you do go into it and it's that food that has a main theory to it, but it's the atmosphere along with it. Like, it is such a dark atmosphere. All these people just shoveling this food. It's like that is the most important thing. Very dark.
And that's the thing about this game that gets me. I like dark atmospheres. I also like comedy and very lighthearted things a lot. That's probably my favorite. But like, to cut that edge of like comedy, I have that dark stuff in my life. And there's a lot of games like that. Half-Life isn't like a horror, but it still has a lot of dark elements to it. This is one of those things I like about this. It doesn't go too far, but it freaks you out just enough with both the audio. It has some music to it. It has some good sound effects and just the art style, and just having to run away. You don't have it's one of the better games where you get kind of chased at times than constantly, because this one's not all about getting chased. You get chased at times.
Yep.
And that's what I really liked about this game.
Yeah, and the thing that really, I don't know, kind of sealed it for me was I didn't know what I was doing in this environment. Like, I know the beginning of the game, it has you dreaming about the woman, but then you just wake up in the maw, and you're like, why am I here? Like, is this just how the world works? Kids are eaten by these fat nasties. So it really just sealed everything in together in this dark, nasty atmosphere of, for me, I feel like the kids are the evil ones and they're for food.
So for me, I think one of the interesting things about the atmosphere, and it's interesting, one of the things that James mentioned, because he said the lightheartedness is one of the things he really likes about things. For me, that's kind of one of the things that adds to the atmosphere of this, is what they went for with the creation of this game was like how children view the world. If you made it twisted rather than lighthearted and bubblegum, but still had that lighthearted like dimension to it, but then you just twisted it. And then on top of that, took it to its extremes. So this, like, it really, the title Little Nightmares, I'm going to argue that point again, really fits well to me because of how they chose to theme this game and its design and all that stuff, and how that really adds to the atmosphere. Because there is a sense of lightheartedness, but it's dark and it's twisted and it's just crazy. It's like, it's weird to me how they really do capture, and I believe they even said this, that one of the things that they were trying to do is have the game be designed like a child-friendly game, but be the exact opposite of that. And that totally comes across. Like, it's really hard to put it into words, but it's exactly what the game is.
Well, and I think it's attracted to children, too. I think children like to watch people play this on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I don't know what age groups, but children enough, And one of the things I think they did right was, and this is where it comes down to style, is having your main character have a yellow raincoat. And it's because it's the one thing that just shines out of everything else in the game is this yellow raincoat. And sometimes, and they did it good enough to where it didn't feel like it was an eyesore in the world. It was a beacon for you to follow and know where your character was at all times.
Damn, that was poetic, son.
I'm kind of curious.
I just figured the character's name was Georgie, and eventually I was going to find
That's where Georgie went.
I'll float down here. Hi, Georgie.
So it turns out Little Nightmares is where you go after you get eaten by Pennywise.
That would be the best.
Oh my god,
the best ever if that's where this all went in the second one.
And that's why they're all wearing masks.
But I'm curious the explanation. Hopefully we get one into that's the premise of this whole game. There's so much not explained. I want to know why the main character has a raincoat, a yellow one specifically, how she got there. Just everything about that character is different, it feels like, than a lot of other ones.
Guys, real quick, we all float down here.
Oh, because he takes them to the maw.
Oh my god.
That's why there's blood moons in this game. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I mean, some of those human creatures are almost moon-shaped, and they're meat.
Hey,
you know what? There's a secret Kabbalah. There is a lot of meat in this game, by the way.
This It theme is working, okay?
But there's a secret Kabbalah that I'm starting to think that, like the Illuminati's everywhere, there are blood moons in every video game ever made, and I'm going to start looking for them now.
It's probably because they're real, and they're trying to make themselves known to us.
We've identified a bunch in a bunch of games already, so there's a theory here. Where's the markers at? We need to find the markers.
We should just become a Dead Space podcast.
Yeah. Again, as usual, we're turning this into a completely different podcast, and this isn't actually about Little Nightmares. Surprise.
Welcome back to Dead Space Radio.
No, one of the things I really liked about the concept and again, the atmosphere with this game is, like we talked about, they crushed that like childlike perspective really well while getting in that twistedness, the darkness, and just making it, it's just like, it really is a nightmare. It feels like a nightmare. But on top of that, they add in so many adult themes that you can just kind of think on and be in consternation about, because this is a game that I would say has the opposite problem of how No Man's Sky originally started. No Man's Sky had breadth but not depth. This game has tons of depth but not much breadth. And it has so much depth that at times you're like, is this Inception? How many? I don't understand what's happening. There's too many layers. But just to point out a few, like it's very obvious that it addresses like themes of gluttony, vanity. A lot of the creepiness comes from that, and the design choice of choosing to present that in a kid-oriented way. And yet those are more adult themes that you think about in your life, where you know, as an adult, you start to kind of self-reflect and make your decisions more in line with how you would like to be perceived rather than just emotion and instinct, which is what you do as a kid. And yet at the same time, there's such a sense of you can only act with instinct in this game because your character is so powerless. One thing that I did find fascinating as well was, I think if I read right, and I might be misquoting this, I do apologize, but initially the term stealth was being thrown around as they were advertising and talking about the game, and they made a conscious choice to change that to it's a hide and seek style game. The reason they did that was because they felt like stealth gave you too much of a sense of empowerment as the character, and I think it was a genius move. Because there's a huge difference. Like when you think stealth, you think like I'm a bad A, I'm Naruto, I'm Solid Snake, and you feel like you can do something about the situation you're in. When you're hide and seek and it's monster world, you definitely don't want to get found. And what can you do but hide and run and hide? So just even as a marketing practice, and like it's very clear that when they went to design this game, they knew exactly what they wanted to create, and it flows so much in this game.
You can run, but you can't hide, B. That's 2. That's 2 for 2.
And so, just like Tyson playing this game, you made this too complicated.
Yeah, well,
Shagwa.
Oh my
Inception,
gosh.
bro. Inception.
But really, like this game was easy for me. I beat it in about an hour and a half, and it was just, I don't know how people could make this complicated. Did you make it complicated, Tyson?
Oh, I made it complicated. I done stremmed the first 3 hours of my gameplay, and you can beat this game in an hour. And then it took me about 30 minutes, maybe 15 to 30 minutes to finally beat it the next time I played it.
Can you beat it in an hour, though? Because I looked on how long to beat, and it was like a speedrun's like an average hour and a half. So maybe you can, yeah.
I was looking up something that said that you could do it under an hour because there's an achievement that you have to do it under 60 minutes, I believe. Oh. And maybe it's an hour and a half.
That's crazy.
But there is an achievement you can do for getting it like as fast as can be.
I believe it.
But no, I made this way complicated. I walked into this game knowing it was called Little Nightmares, and I think I watched my kids watch someone play this game for like a brief moment. So I came into this thinking it was going to be a very problem-oriented, puzzle-solving game, and I noticed, things hanging from the ceilings, and then certain things being lit up, and not necessarily lit up where it's like you do need to use them, but it's like you can interact with it, but it does nothing. Like so many dressers I was able to climb up for no reason, or at least that I couldn't find. Maybe I couldn't find a mushroom person, but I made it way too complicated. I would spend time in rooms like trying to solve these puzzles early because I'm like, well, let's not go too far. Like, let's just grab this stuff because I know I'm going to need it. And I didn't. You just need to run through the rooms. Just run through the rooms.
Yeah, I watched you play like a good portion of it on and off. And then when I went and played, I just was able, I'm like, yeah, he told me not to be complicated. And so I was like, I ran through a bunch of it. But then I got to the point where I didn't watch you, and then you helped me by watching me.
Yeah, I backseat.
It helped me a lot to get through everything.
I told him to throw the key in the toilet, and then he just sat there trying to throw this key in the toilet for a little bit, and I did. What a scrub.
Yeah, it's funny. Oh my gosh, tried to throw a key in the toilet. Good grief.
I was like, no, trust me, that's where it needs to go.
Yeah, clearly, I need to unlock this toilet achievement. No, it's funny to me that you guys
follow the key.
It's funny to me that Tyson in particular had such a difficult time just because of his expectation for the puzzliness of it. Just sitting there trying to be like I expected a text from him at one point just to be like, dude, what's the answer to the Sudoku? But like for me, where the complication came in, and this is where I was talking about where I really do like the game, but there was just something that didn't sit well with me. It's all this depth that's there, all these things that they allude to, but you don't get answers for anything. And you don't get explanations for anything. There's so much mystery, and that's where I made it complicated. Because, I mean, I do like that they did it this way, and I had to come to terms with it, though. Because I love narrative, but I also like to feel satiated and that I understand what happened, even if it's convoluted like Final Fantasy 7 or 8. Nope, you're not going to get any clarification in this game. There is some narrative, lots of conceptualization, I guess is the word I would use.
Yeah.
But none of it is ever concreted. It's very much left up to you to interpret this experience in your own way. And man, I wrestled with that. it's why I couldn't initially, and I will say it now that I've thought about it, but initially I couldn't say that I really liked the game because I was so just like discontent with not having answers. But when I realized that that really is a huge part of the design and it's what adds to the atmosphere, they nailed it. They really nailed it.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't like it to begin with, but once it is left up to your imagination, it is nice to kind of come at it with your own expectations and stuff like that. Because I'm kind of looking at it, like I said earlier, like I feel like the kids are the bad things. Like, and of course, you know, it's more likely that the adults are, and I think I read this somewhere, like the wealthy and the elite of the world, and they just go to this place. But it also says. There's like a quote in there from the lady that, or something like that in the lore of this game where they enter the ship, but none leave. And so it's like, if those are the wealthy and the elites, are they just there binging forever till they die? Because it makes it sound so much more sinister.
Yeah. When we were spitballing about this too, before we actually sat down and like really decided how we were going to approach this podcast, one of the things that crossed my mind as we were discussing topics like that was that you really, if you wanted to twist it enough, could turn this into like an expression and a critique of capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
Because when capitalism, in my opinion, is a great thing, it causes a lot of advancement and a lot of innovation. But when you get greedy with capitalism, it consumes itself. And if you guys haven't played this, or especially if you have played this, you'll notice as you get through this game, especially in the later parts, that everyone in there is gluttonous and greedy, and they're all chasing you the second they see you, despite the massive piles of meat and stuff in front of them. Even all the people that are working in the maw, the janitor and the chefs, they can't let a single tiny little piece of meat slip by them. They have to get you. It's every little thing. They need all of it. And then the consumers, the fat people that they're feeding throughout the game, they have to have more. They're never satiated. And then at the end of the game, when you're walking down that hallway and just getting, like, all those people are just dissipating into shadows or whatever. I honestly sat there and I'm like, I'm not trying to like put a knock on capitalism here, but like in my mind, I've always looked at capitalism this way. You definitely want to be profitable, but what you want to avoid being is greedy. And the focus on greed in this game and how you can get consumed by it, that just was a theme that stuck out for me, and that might just be me and my interpretation, but I found it so interesting.
See, now, and that's Shag's interpretation, and this is mine, and this is for all of our younger listeners, so really pay attention to this, because this is going to help you long-term in your life. This is because your parents don't let you do the things that you want to do, and it's they're bad parents. And that's all that this is just parents are bad and kids are good, and you need to rebel against your parents. That's my theory on this game.
And the only kids that listen to this are your kids.
Oh, shit! Well, the interesting thing about that, too, is like as you get towards the end, though, are the kids good?
No, definitely not.
Well, here's the thing, though. It leaves you wondering. Like they're evil. Because a lot of good is accomplished, but then there are a lot of questions. Got some splaining to do.
I think the kids are just getting revenge. I like the little kid, the main character.
There were a lot of things though as you run through the game, and you're mostly running, but there are a couple things that are really satisfying. And I think Tyson was telling me he had a particular one that he just was like, "Oof, I felt real good about that." Oh, maybe it was James.
I don't know, but I feel just as my last little thing, I feel very much vibes of Let the Right One In from that little child from 6, your character. That's a vampire child movie, or Let Me In.
Who's 9, but her name's 6.
No, 9's a whole different movie. They're little Muppet people with buttons. Animal! but anyway, you do get to reap some justice on some of these baddies, and it does feel pretty good.
Let's just say my gluttonous nature was satisfied at this point, because there's at one point, it's the first boss, the janitor, who's the guy with the very long arms that's very just a horrible, horrible creature in this world. I hated every second of being in the presence of this janitor. And at one point, as you're getting chased, he chases you, and he becomes gluttonous too, I guess, because he really is trying to get you. You must be really tasty, or just he's got to get every ounce.
You can't even let a speck of dust go away. That's what I'm saying. And greed, it's so there.
He's the best butcher ever was. He doesn't let nothing slip by.
He's not a butcher, he's a janitor.
He's a janitorial butcher.
And he's got his spindly arms in there just trying to reach for you, and you have to in this place where there's a door that's about to crush down in his arms, but it's being held by a cage. He doesn't care, and you have to go and pull bars off to collapse the door onto his arms, and they just get sliced off. And they even did a little touch where if you start to walk off, one of them will try to grab you, kind of thing.
I missed that.
And it's pretty, like, they did a good job on some details in this game, and that was one of those ones. But it was so satisfying to finally get rid of that guy and make him a normal person, because he doesn't have that long arm issue anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't really get that benefit on the other guys, but it's nice being able to chop his arms off. It felt good.
And
it started with a victory.
If you guys don't know this about James, he's always had a phobia about long arms. There's this awesome board game called Wingspan, and James like won't even look at pictures of it. It's just about birds.
He sees an albatross and he just starts running for the hills.
He's definitely done some discrimination against people who have overly long arms. So
I just don't associate with them because I've never seen anyone that had that long arms, so I don't know.
Arms past your knees, we're not friends.
No, but what I will say is it really is, because one of the things the developers wanted you to feel, and I think they deliver well, is that they want you to feel as helpless and non-empowered as possible. So to have this one moment where you do get to kind of get your vengeance on being hunted the whole time, it is so nice. Even I was like, oh, that was like a nice dessert.
Well, and on top of those victories, there is some little fun bits, a little bit of remorse. And I think this is where the lighthearted side comes in. And that's when you find those damn mushroom people, or as they're called, I don't remember, gnomes, I think. Gnomes? I think is what they're actually called in the game.
Are they actually mushroom people?
I'm calling them mushroom people because that's what I thought when I first saw them. And I'm like, what's this mushroom guy? So they'll always be mushroom people.
It's
to me.
pronounced genoms, okay?
Genoms. They got them G's. But that's the lighthearted. The first time I seen one of those guys, I was a little scared. And I did let out some screams, which are not recorded, and no one can prove me on that. But I let out some screams, so I was a little startled when I first saw this guy. I didn't scream, but I was a little startled. And then I followed the dude and found him in this little cubby hole. And I went up to him, and I did the interaction button, the mouse click. And then I thought he was going to kill the thing, and it looked to me like it gave him a little bit of hug. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome, because you get that nice lighthearted music, you give him a little hug, and then the ones that I hugged, because I only found like 6, they'd follow me around and mimic my actions. So if I'd start jumping, they'd start jumping. If I crouched down, it'd follow me around. So I'm like, hell yeah, these things are my friends, and I'm going to find as many as I can. I found 6. I didn't do a very good job.
I got 2.
I think there's 13 of them total, right?
Yeah, I believe so. But, and then again, spoiler, I think we might already mention this a little bit, but then it turns out, and I'm not ruining another talking point, am I, for somebody else? Good.
No.
Good, I'm not. I'm going to ruin this for me. In the very end, you get offered a sausage by one of these mushroom peoples, and you effing eat the mushroom person. And it gets worse, which I'll leave for somebody else to talk about. But I just could not believe that. Yeah. I thought because I did not find enough mushroom people, I effing ate that dude, and I felt so bad. So I told James while he was playing, I was like, you find as many mushroom peoples as you can.
You saved that little bastard.
This
is another spot where Tyson overcomplicated it.
I did.
He's like, my actions did this.
Yeah.
It was me.
And I just wept for a couple hours before I finished the game. But anyway, so the hugs, I really feel, set you up so damn good, because you think you're saving these people and you're doing good, and they've come and helped you a couple of times. Like they do get the distractions done to help you get out of some escape. So you really think like you're working well together, and you don't. And what this does to me, I think, in the very end, is you are fully combined with Shadow 6.
That's the official name we're going with, Shadow 6?
Shadow 6 is the real thing. Did you guys not see Shadow 6 when you fed? When you got hungry, did you see Shadow 6?
Don't think so.
Elements of it.
No, there's a legit your person, your 6 figure in a raincoat, all shadow out.
Yep. Yeah,
and they'll stand, and then at the very end with the lady, you're eating her, and that's where Shadow 6 is standing the closest to you. It's like basically right off as you're feeding right here, it's standing like behind her shoulder. And so every other time it's a bit around the room, like it's in a different spot. But it's so crazy. And so I think for sure once you bit into that lady, you and this Shadow 6 became one, and there's some evil there, obviously.
It's interesting, but it's really crazy too, because this is where you start to be like, wait, are the kids the heroes of this story? Like you just these little
everyone else in this, I would say so. And
then the other crazy part is just the progression of it, because there's times. So one of the things I'll jump back for just a second here about hugging the gnomes is the gnomes are meant to be designed to be pretty skittish, and there are some that respond well to being hugged, but there's a lot that are like really off put by you because of the maw. They run and hide and will not interact with you. And even if you hug them, like I hugged one and he like stood there in a daze. It was weird. And I always, because I didn't get the positive interactions except with one gnome, I had one gnome who helped me out with the thing. For the most part, I assumed that maybe you weren't quite hugging him, but you were like almost giving in to some type of deeper need, and then just like, okay, maybe not. But then you could also drag them around and like put them where you could throw them. So then I thought maybe they were just keys to puzzles, like again, overcomplicating the game. But yeah, man, the Shadow 6 thing is super interesting. And to me, it was a bit ethereal at first. I actually didn't notice it on the lady, so I'm going to need to go back and watch that part again. Yeah. But the times that I did see the Shadow 6, very ethereal. Like it's like when you see Anakin with Darth Vader's shadow, like it's there, but it's not there.
Well, with this, it essentially just proves that like every little piece of this is to a different puzzle, and so you try to put it all together and like nothing came out of it. But
it's the worst Rubik's Cube ever.
I'm peeling these stickers off.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm gonna solve this thing. And that's where fandom and all those other websites come into play. They're trying to solve it themselves. Yep. Yeah. But no, I'm excited because Little Nightmares 2 kind of thing, I think we're gonna get a better explanation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am looking forward to that. But before we dive into too much speculation there, let's listen to a word from our sponsors.
Yes, exactly, because they will never hide things from you. They will always let you know how it is, so listen to them.
And they're so good at Rubik's Cubes.
And we're back from the ad. Thank you so much for listening.
It was so bad.
I mean, it's probably you giving it, so.
Yeah, if it was a bad one.
Great, Tyson just lost us our ad sponsors.
I got us sued somehow, too.
They said your voice is copyrighted?
Yeah. Oh, no. You sound too much like Mickey Mouse.
It was Apple who was suing us, and they said, you should have read the terms. No, don't sign it before you read the
terms. You'll never learn.
But, I mean, there's a couple of terrifying people in this game, or things, creatures.
Yeah, and I mean, we did talk about them, like the janitor with those crazy-ass spider arms. I feel like that guy was like a mix between the doctor from Nightmare Before Christmas, the guy that puts Sally together. He's with that big old head, because it's like, where's your eyes at, bud? So that's what I felt like with the janitor. Is this guy was just way too spindly and very much reminded me, again, of Limbo in the Spider. Because again, very long limbed. That's the first creature you come to in Limbo. Are these the same developers? I didn't look that up. I didn't look up to see who the developer of Limbo was.
I don't know, but I believe it's a Swedish developer, and I'm terrible at pronouncing the name, but I didn't write it down either, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it.
So it's like a Swedish developer's idea of what going to America and going on a cruise is, right? That's what this is an interpretation of that.
They were going to call it Cruise Simulator, but that got shut down immediately.
No, so the janitor very, very much reminded me of that spider, and whether or not they're related, I don't know, but again, very much in the same vein for me. The chefs, though, those guys were the ones that really freaking blew my mind. It looks to me like they're wearing like flesh masks. Like that's not their real skin or whatever. Like it looks like they're just wearing these people suits. And maybe that's where the rich people come from, or go. Once they get on the
eyes are like they're just pits. They're not. It's not even like they're just super black eyes with depths of darkness. No, it's like there's just empty space behind the lids. It's off-putting.
And those eyes are deep, so it's like this is like Devil's Rejects. You're wearing a human mask. That's an Egger suit.
It puts the lotion on its skin.
Your skin is hanging off her bones.
No, and the thing is, like, the janitor, I think he was the freakiest to me, just very off-putting. These guys just look like they're swollen, you know. It's just something wrong about them.
Yeah.
Flabs, they've been eating too much human meat. It's essentially probably what happens when you gorge on human meat.
I hope I'm getting the reference right, but yeah, like James is saying, man, they're very much like the Edgars from, I think it's Men in Black, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Edgar, just look like your skin's falling off your bones. Edgar.
Is this better?
Oh, man, we're old.
Watch Men in Black.
You know who another terrifying character for me was, though, and it's because of the contrast, was the lady.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
She, like, floats across the room. She's graceful, and yet she's got this, like, porcelain mask, which means she's hiding something. She is surrounded by broken mirrors, but she'll be like sitting in front of one, like brushing her hair. Everything's serene. She hums like a nice tune, but it's also creepy, kind of like the whistle in Kill Bill.
Like the Huntress.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because it's so out of place in the world, two things become obvious. One, she's running the show, and two, it makes it more creepy because she stands in such contrast to everything else that's going on. Like, this is where I think the theme of vanity comes in, because everything in this world is ugly and distorted and twisted, and then she is graceful and with the porcelain mask, just like not those things. And even the way she carries herself and the actions she does and the tunes that she hums, and it just makes it, dude, it just makes it weird.
You know who wasn't a terrifying character? The shoe monster. I was like very Star Wars at that point, thinking I was in the garbage disposal with the monster in the pit. Come on, you guys are Star Wars nerds enough
I know
to know
what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
did any of you get caught by the shoe monster?
I jumped into the pit because I was thinking that death was going to be cool. Like the fat people on the boat, they eat you. Some guy just squeezes you. Like, you dying pretty interesting. No, you just disappear, which I get it. You're in a pool of shoes, Scrooge McDucking it around, getting athlete's face.
Oh.
And then, and then you just get pulled down by this thing. I thought for sure the death would be cool. Like maybe your raincoat would go flying or something. And that's it's a long run, through shoes.
I didn't even get what you were saying, and I started playing it last night. And so I was like, what shoe monster? It's like, oh, the thing that never got me, so it never was a monster to me.
Technically, it wasn't a monster. It never got me, so I think it was just another kid who was bad at swimming.
Yeah.
Who was also trying to get out.
Yeah, there was a shoe monster in there, and I was like, dude, you got to die in a cool way. Like, I made it, I was on the end, and I'm like, all right, let's jump in and see what happens. It was not worth it. I had to run that whole stretch again. It was very annoying.
Well, there was another one that was kind of creepy, but also kind of the opposite of creepy. It was the genomes. I mean, the gnomes. I mean, the
mushroom people.
The mushroom people, yeah.
Change the name, developers.
Yeah. Do you guys even know how to pronounce things? No, I'm just kidding. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about the gnomes. I found them kind of cute. I really like the design where the hats hang like way over their heads so you can't see them. And they're like distorted versions of your character, like basically children. Like they seem, and I got that vibe from the beginning, like, were these children or are these just children that have been around? But there's some of the deformities that make you think that maybe they're just like workers on the ship that handle things. But they also run away from like the janitor and all the other guys. So there's a lot of confusingness there, but it turns out if you get the full version of the game, there's some DLC content where you play as another character and it goes through a different path than the original does, but some of the paths overlap. And the interesting thing about playing as him is you get more insight to the gnomes and to some of the backstory and some of the interesting things that happen, but this is where some of the real dark stuff happens. So one of the things that what will happen is as you're running around I think he's called the boy. You'll see Six in the same level, like trying to dodge one of the eyes that's a searchlight, or just little moments like that where you're concurrently trying to escape as well, which Tyson and I both mentioned is it's kind of nice to see that you're not the only child that had enough brains to be like, I should get out of here.
Yeah.
But there's a point in the game where the janitor baits you in with a piece of meat as Six, and you take it and he puts you in a cage. And then it reopens the scene and you're in a room with a bunch of cages and he drags a cage off. That's the boy. That happens in the DLC. You're the kid that gets dragged off in the cage.
Oh, yeah.
It's so nuts. And then later on, the boy runs into the woman or whatever she's called, the lady, and she uses her powers to turn him into a gnome. So that's where the gnomes come from. There are other children that tried to escape, and she just turns them into gnomes. Well, he makes his way back through the levels and gets to the point, and the scene ends with him standing next to a sausage in the same room where a gnome offers you a sausage, and you decide that the gnome looks tastier in your descent into whatever it is you become at the end, because again, the game doesn't answer any questions. But like, oh, that extra level of twistedness, man, like, so sad. It was like, I already like felt bad for the gnomes because I assumed that something bad was behind their situation. But then you find out that like there are other kids and you just ate another kid after, by the way, as Six running through the lunchroom and a kid throws you a piece of food during one of your bits of hunger. So a kid who can't escape helps you escape by feeding you, and you return it by eating another kid. Like it's, oh man, this game is demented in so many ways, but like in the best ways. It really just gets you thinking.
Yeah, that was actually a difficult part in some ways, where you had to drag that cage with the kid, and that part was like, not even going to try to help the little kid out. You're just going to get out of there.
Oh, you want a hand?
Keep it up. You'll get out. I did.
Keep laying there. You're doing great.
But there's an allusion to this before it even happens, right? So during one of the scenes, you're like loading a furnace with a bunch of fuel, and a bunch of the gnomes that you've helped along the way are helping you load the furnace. But you're in a dark room, and the furnace is the source of light. If you look at the shadows of those gnomes, it doesn't give their gnome shadows with the pointy hats. It's the silhouette of children. So like the game gives you, like you were saying with Shadow 6, like it really hints at what's coming up. It's crazy. Like that extra DLC like just added a whole nother layer that I loved.
Crazy. Maybe the shadows stay, and so the shadow is always the child, and so it's the child with the child.
Le child.
All I know is all the children are ugly. They're not grotesque.
Their parents loved them, or ate them, or sold them.
Something.
They did something.
But they're not just horrible creatures. And that's one of the things I learned from this game is that if you're grotesque enough, I might be willing to kill you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a serial killer now.
Let's hope he doesn't make it to the Fallout world. He's just killing nice ghouls all over the place.
No, those guys, okay, so in comparison, those guys are angels and look beautiful. The creatures in this, man, I don't know how they're still alive, is what they look so bloated, so just... they look like, if gluten and pollen really were like serious allergies, this is where we're going to lead to, is essentially these humans becoming these creatures, because they look like they've been bathing in gluten and pollen, and their ancestors were just highly allergic, and they just slowly absorbed it.
It's a good thing Six couldn't get their hands on a crowbar.
All I gotta say is mod time.
Mod time. It's mon time. I won't do a real theme song there, but the other interesting thing too is that they all seem to, everything in that game looks like it's lost its humanity. Like nothing really resembles being human other than like very loosely, very soulless, and it just adds again to the atmosphere. The one thing I find interesting is you guys are bringing this topic up is this, and I just in my mind realized that this might be a retelling of the Promised Neverland from the back end. This is the factory where the kids go after they are farmed on the farm and raised with their beautiful orphan mom, who's so nice to them and so sweet to them, and then they get adopted, and then later they find out that actually they're just being sold as food to the ma. So they went with a different art style, and they went with the opposite end of the spectrum, but it's, correlating worlds. Again, guys, nothing is ever...
They're just matrixing people and feeding them to the mom.
Nothing is ever not tied to something else. No, I'm just kidding. But, like, that'd be an interesting idea. But yeah, James apparently is a murderer based on what he was just saying.
All I know is...
If you have a facial disfigurement or something, stay away from James.
No. You've got really long arms, or you're, like... so weirdly obese that you just start to turn into a blob, like the blobfish. You could look like the blobfish, maybe.
Don't watch 1,000 Pound Life.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Promised Neverland, that's an anime series that's a great show. If you have problems with watching horrific things happen to children, maybe don't watch that one. But again, it's a TV show, and interestingly enough, as I was digging through stuff on this, I found out that there was a TV show planned back in 2017. They had a director, they had a producer. I didn't write down who was which, but you had Dimitri M. Johnson, who was tied to it, and Stephen Bugaj, who was also tied to it. And I'm probably mispronouncing that name. I do apologize.
Baggage.
It's 2020, and I haven't seen or heard any other news about this. So I'm thinking that it didn't happen. I kind of wish, I don't even know if it's still happening, but I kind of wish it did, because they probably would go more into the confirmation of stories. But what they did do is they put out a mobile game called Very Little Nightmares, which I believe is a prequel. And there's also a 4-comic series that is a tie-in as well. So there are ways to expand on the world and get a better understanding of what's happening. And it's interesting to see that these guys really went varied routes, because it's such a great concept. Like, it really does play well in any type of media. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, well, and they're going to have to explain a little bit more if they're going to actually pull off the TV show, I think. But or did the TV show come out?
No, that's the thing. Is the last news I saw was in 2017.
So
they announced,
maybe not.
They announced in 2021.
I know, it's, oh my gosh.
What year was it? 2017 that they announced the Little Nightmares 2, or was it 2019? I can't remember which, but I've only ever seen stuff about Little Nightmares 2 since the rumor about the TV show coming out. Like, there's nothing. There's an IMDb that doesn't even have like actual information on it. It's just a bunch of weird, like, Sony had a commercial once.
Maybe it's going to be
once.
Maybe it's going to be like Max Payne, where they have the TV series inside the show.
Oh, I loved that.
That might be kinda cool,
Mirrors
actually.
are more fun than television.
Oh, I did miss
The
two
Flamingo will
names
tell
on
you
this.
that.
The flamingo.
So I don't know how these guys were supposed to be tied into it, Dimitri M. Johnson and Stephen Bugaj, but the Joe Russo and Henry, it was going to be directed by Henry Slick, and Joe Russo was also tied to it. So, like, it seemed like it had some traction. They at least had gotten a director for the pilot, but as far as I can tell, since 2017, this has literally gone nowhere. So I don't even know if this is still a live project, but I'd watch it. I'd for a little bit at least, I liked American Horror Story.
Yeah,
and then the two new
season.
ones that Netflix put out are amazing. House on the Hill, I think one is called, and the
Those
other
aren't
one's
American
called,
Horror Stories.
one of them's called like Mansion.
Mansion Town.
Yeah, I'm bad at names.
I will say, if they do a TV show off of this, hopefully they keep that same art style. Like, I love the art style that was in Little Nightmares. So if they do bring that to like a TV series, hopefully it's still done in that, or at least an art style that does well and gives a good interpretation of that art style from the video game. Because I just loved it. It just helped with that grotesque, like, dingy nastiness of the world, and I think in that style it really just hit that home in that balance.
And honestly, this is the type of world that Tim Burton would crush. So if he has not seen this game and he does ever see it, I would hope that he's so like motivated by it that he's like, I want to do something with this, because I would love to see a Tim Burton adaptation of this.
I'd love to see a Tim Burton adaptation of this for adults.
Yeah, for sure.
Holy cow, this for adults would be insane.
I bet you he saw this as like, man, he's jealous. He's just cannot get away from this because they did a better job than he could have.
Oh my gosh.
I bet he just doesn't have the balls to do it. I'm just kidding. I want you to do it. Please don't sue
How
me.
dare you? Tim Burton literally has the best Batman out of all the Batmans.
True that. Val Kilmer. Just kidding. Michael Keaton.
That was the sequel, but yeah. No, like legitimately, it is dated, and the new Batmans are great. Not the new ones, but the ones before the new ones, like Dark Knight, those ones. But original Batman by Tim Burton, legitimately amazing. And I'm going to hype it up, and this show is now the Tim Burton Batman podcast, so get wrecked.
Okay.
MK Dog is the best Batman.
Okay, so if we're going to have a rating for Batman movie, what would you rate it?
Oh, that Batman, 11 out of 10. Oh, Little Nightmares, 1 out of 4.
your rating system's got a little wonky there.
Are we rating Batman? Because I got real excited for a second.
No. We're not.
I don't know. For an actual review rating, I'd give this middle of the road 7.
Yeah, that's
maybe 8, just because it doesn't explain a lot, and it's very short. And if I paid $30 for this game, I would have been mad. But I think it came out at 20.
Yeah, I think it came out at 20, and the bonus content version came out at 30, which is actually pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I initially had thought this game had released at full retail of normal like console games at $60, and I was like, That's a big gripe I would have had with it if I didn't pick it up for a steal on discount. But no, finding out that it was $20 on release, yeah. I mean, the professionalism represented in this game is absolutely there. They crush everything with... I only have two minor things that I can criticize. One is that I would have liked a little bit more insight into the world than is given. That's just me, but I do also feel like the way they did it represents the game well, so I can't necessarily knock a point off for that. But I and many other critics, by the way, agree that the controls could have been a little tighter. And to be clear, that doesn't mean the controls were bad. They just could have been tighter. And then it's kind of repetitive and it's very short. So the shortness makes it so you don't mind the repetitiveness. But honestly, in my opinion, those are both two things that work against it. But these are minor critiques. I would have to, normally I like to do a 10 out of 10 system, like that type of scale. But for this game, I think I need to do the 5 scale. And I'd go 4 out of 5. Like it's worth picking up. It's a great game, incredibly well executed. And any criticisms I have are very minor.
Mine would be a 7 out of 10, and it's just solely that this type of gameplay style isn't really my style. I don't do the indie games like this. I do more like modded style or first-person indie games, like Phasmophobia and stuff like that. That doesn't mean it's a good game. That's for me,
that's your style.
My style, my rating, and I think it is a great game actually. And I think they did a good job, and they should be proud of themselves because it's polished. I hate the controls. For the most part, and especially since like I had to run and slide and shift and control just did not work very well on the keyboard. That was my biggest.
I changed the slide crouch to right click, dude. It
that's what I should have done too. But once I got used to it, it wasn't too bad. And it's not going to be something I ding it for, but they definitely should try to improve it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because we should clarify that we did play on different systems. So those two played on computer, PC, and had some complaints with the controls there. I played on controller, which I actually think is the better way to play it based on some of the things these guys were telling me. But even despite that, I still give that criticism where the controls could have been tighter. So I do recommend this game with the controller, but even then, there's some needless frustration caused by it's not muddy. They're not bad. They just could be better. That's all I can say.
The final verdict is Tim Burton couldn't have done a better job.
Yep. Prove me wrong by making a movie.
Great
for
job,
adults.
Tim Burton. I didn't know Tim Burton was Swedish, but I'm very impressed.
He couldn't have done a better job. They did a good job. They outshined Tim Burton.
Yeah. Exactly. Prove me wrong by making a movie.
This game, by the way, in one of the interviews I read, they talked about that because people brought up the issue of time. And they said, for us, it very much is quality over quantity. And I couldn't agree with them more. And I will say, going back to Little Nightmares 2, which we just mentioned, I do believe it's confirmed that game will be quite a bit longer. And based on some of the things I'm hearing about it, there's going to be a lot more to be excited for. So considering how good this game is already, and again, congratulations to you guys, I'm pretty hyped for the next one.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I probably should have done a little bit more legwork into these guys than I did, because I don't know if this is their first game or what have you. And if this is their first game, this is their first debut into the market. Awesome job. My rating was not because it was a bad game. I loved the game. I just wanted more of it, and I think Little Nightmares 2 is going to give us that, and I'm excited for that one.
And that is on our schedule. So when we get that, we play it, we get it done, we will have a podcast soon on that. So
that's a great summation too. Like that last sentence, this is what I think we should end on. This is what we should leave you guys with is, if there's anything that I could say about this game is I just wanted a little bit more of what that game was bringing. And that's a great compliment. But it also caused me frustration.
Yeah, don't shadow over it. Tim Burton could not have done a better job.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Until we figure out who this was.
Tim, I'm a fan. I'm sorry.
No, it's against him. This is against Tim Burton.
Shut your whore mouth.
You, Tim Burton.
Screw you, Tim Burton. Prove me wrong.
But really, prove us wrong. I bet you can't do it.
I will start a crusade for Tim Burton. Where are my crusaders at?
If I need to get a petition and a clipboard for that movie, I'll do that for at least a couple of houses.
I'm good.
See, he's not dedicated, Tim B.
I'm not dedicated. But I don't think he can do it, so he's going to have to prove himself wrong.
Me and Tim B, he lets me call him that. We have a great relationship.
Timmy B, dude. I wish he'd let me call him that. He doesn't even let me look at him in the face.
Okay, this has been a great episode. It's been fun talking about Little Nightmares. And, just to solidify it, we are experts in this realm. So please heed our advice and play this game because it is good. Even if we didn't give great ratings, it is still an amazing game, and it's definitely worth a playthrough, especially since it's only like a 3 to 4 hour game. So with that, any final thoughts?
You can find it for cheap, so pick it up, play it, enjoy.
Yeah, and especially if you think the second one looks interesting, I do believe it ties in. So I recommend if you're interested in the second, go back and get a copy of this one.
And there's a mobile version, so check that one out too. It offers more to the story.
Yep.
And so you can catch us on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify and iTunes, and also on Twitch, with our handles in the description below. We'll catch you guys next time. This has been the Games Revealed podcast, brought to you by Bunny Strike Studios. This is James.
And I'm Tyson.
And I'm Shagwa.
We're peacing out.
Later.